Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about what happens when your partner dies and you're not married. So this is from one of our recent cases, which we always, as always, anonymize for the protection of our client's property. Or not property, privacy.
Yes.
So Ernie came in looking to do a will, and he wanted to leave something for his girlfriend. Not wife, girlfriend. But he didn't want to make it a lump sum thing for reasons that we'll talk about later. He wanted to make sure that she didn't kind of spend it all at once, just, I guess, for her own protection. So he was thinking something along the lines of, like a set amount every month, like an allowance from the dead, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what Ernie was looking to do. And we're going to talk about how this situation comes up often and some of the pros and cons of how to approach it. So the first question is, should a girlfriend get inheritance? That's obviously a personal question. In this case, Ernie does have, children, biological children. They're adults. Ernie is as an otherwise solo ager. He doesn't seem to have much of a relationship with his kids. But to the extent that they do have a relationship, they're fine with him leaving whatever he wants to his girlfriends. It's your life, it's your money. Kind of was the kind of vibe I got from that conversation. Yeah.
Oh, good. All right.
Okay, so he squared that away. There's not going to cause a conflict with his existing family or with his family. But who would inherit by default if he didn't make a plan? As you know, Janice, and most of our listeners should know that if you don't have a will, it's not like your money just evaporates. Rather, there is a default inheritance set of rules that each state has. So in the absence of a will, it would go to your next of kin, sort of based on this statutory order of who's closest. And girlfriend doesn't fit in there anywhere.
Right. So it would have gone against his wishes for his will.
Exactly. So he for his given circumstances, unless he's going to put a ring on it, he absolutely has to get a plan done, right?
Yes.
All right. So now that we know we've kind of checked the box that Ernie does need to make a plan, what's the best way to leave that inheritance for his girlfriend? And based on what his wishes are, that he doesn't want to give it to her all at once, for whatever reasons, and he would rather sort of bleed it out or monthly,
Right.
let it flow out slowly over years. So the best way to do that is through a trust. The reason for that is so, Janice, what do you think? Do you think the average person is familiar with how a trust works?
Honestly, I don't. I think it's kind of maybe it's not a newer concept, but I think it's definitely everyone thinks of a will, right? You just have your will and you leave your items to whomever. Right. Trust is a little bit different. So maybe you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, in this context, there's all sorts of different types of trusts. You can make them in all shapes and sizes. But in this context, you're creating sort of a wrapper around your assets, around your money that has rules to it. Right. And basically all the money and assets within the wrapper just needs to follow those rules. And in this case, the rules would be something along the lines of, a set periodic payment to the girlfriend of a certain amount for as long as she lives. The reason why the trust is the best way of doing this is that you can put other rules on it. And one of the best set of rules you can put on are what we would all know as asset protection rules. What that means is, this money, let's call it, I don't remember what it was. Let's call it $100,000. Probably more than that. Actually, scratch that. That's too small for a trust. Let's call it the $300,000 that Ernie's leaving for his girlfriend. But let's say the girlfriend's never been really good about doing her taxes. She's been kind of flaky about it. Yeah. You want to make sure that whatever you leave her doesn't end up going to the IRS. Or let's say the girlfriend is prone to, I don't know, gambling
or something like just making the money disappear. Loves to shop. Could be
exactly. Or if the girlfriend subsequently remarries and then subsequently divorces, now she has an ex-husband who might have a claim to funds. So all those things are risks that you want to protect the assets from. Ernie doesn't want his gift to his girlfriend going to any of those people, not to the new husband, new ex-husband, not to the IRS, not to, I don't know, Saks Fifth Avenue credit card, whatever.
Right.
So when you do a trust, you can, and you probably should, put this wrapper, add into the rules this wrapper that is completely protected. And this is one of the few areas where it's pretty strong. because the money goes through this trust, it's a type of asset protection that the girlfriend could never get for herself, even if she paid the most expensive lawyer in the world. It's just the way the law works there. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So how does this control? How does a trust control how heirs spend the money? Like we talked about, there's rules or there's conditions on this wrapper, and you can limit how the money is spent. For example, traditionally you limit it to health, home, and education. Right? I think some people add support, but that's kind of vague. The reason for this is you want to basically, most people want this to make sure that the person lives a good, safe, healthy life, not be a free spender, gambler, an addict, or whatever.
Right. It's actually helping them and benefiting them.
Now, you might be thinking, oh, I don't want my girlfriend or anyone else to have to live with these limiting rules, but it's not that limiting if you think about it. If the girlfriend wants to buy a house, the trust will buy the house and the trust will own the house, and therefore the house will be protected from IRS creditors and so forth. The girlfriend lives there.
Right.
It's not that much different from the girlfriend buying it herself, except that you get this huge layer of, barrier of protection. So it's kind of huge plus upside. The only way it's a downside is if you're a raging addict or a shopaholic.
Right, and then you want it all in one time. But
exactly.
That's a whole nother set of issues, right?
And that's probably why the trust is being created.
Right, you never know, right?
All right, so lastly, let's talk about how do trust funds get paid out? You're probably wondering if you're thinking, if this is interesting to you, for how you want to do your trust for your heirs, your girlfriend, or who have you. You probably wonder, okay, how exactly does that work? How does it, how do those payments occur after I've passed? There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can either do a set dollar amount or a percentage. So I'll give you examples of both. Ernie actually decided to do $1,000 per month for his girlfriend. I'm not a big fan of that, only because inflation has a weird way of really catching up real quick.
Yeah.
What feels like $1,000 a month now, maybe 10 years from now, is going to feel like $500 a month or less. Right?
Yeah, if right.
Right. So for that reason, I like a percentage. And what that means is if the trust fund, meaning the amount that upon Ernie's death goes into the trust is, let's call it, I'm going to use a round number because my math, is $500,000, $500,000, then the trust might say, we'll pay 2% of that annually, 2% of that annually, but in monthly payments to the girlfriend. Does that make sense, or should I?
Yes. No.
Yeah,
don't.
perfect.
Yeah.
Don't try. Right.
No. I'm like, wait. Let me get the calculator. Hold on. No. No, but it does make sense. It does.
Right. So then, assuming that the trust is reasonably well invested, that it should stay. It should actually keep growing while still paying out to the girlfriend, which
Correct.
is right. And if it keeps growing, that 2% of 500,000 of the first year in 10 years will be 2% of hopefully like closer to 600,000, which is so you're keeping up with inflation in that way.
Right. So
Hopefully.
Then your $1,000, like you said, it's not going to feel like 500 in a few years, but your $1,000 could grow to 2,000, or it does definitely makes more sense.
All right, and then lastly. You want to make sure that, sorry, you can do it in set monthly increments, quarterly, or even annually. Monthly is usually the most common. Annually feels like a real lump sum, but otherwise it's it's kind of up to you. And lastly, the actual payment delivery system. Does your girlfriend have to go hat in hand to the trustee or the lawyer asking for her payment? No, it's usually really, really easy. It's either actually, these days it's direct deposit or check.
Right.
It's super, super easy to set up. So, there's there's very little friction. Let's put it that way. Once you set it up, and once there's going to be a little bit of setup time upon your passing, but you'll be dead. So,
You won't.
yeah, once it's set up, the girlfriend will just get it'll be like Social Security or an annuity or something. It'll just show up in her account. Yeah.
Like automated and comes. Yeah, I mean, click of a button anymore, and it's automated. You can say the first of the month it goes in, and
there you go. I think that's all we have today. Hopefully I've covered, what happens when. So this was really directed at anyone who is in Ernie's shoes, who's kind of a solo ager and has a girlfriend or somebody who's non-family who they want to make sure they're taken care of and possibly wants it paid out over time. So hopefully we've covered that and answered your questions. This does come up more than you would think.
So if you're in this particular situation, the solo ager, definitely check out Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan. If you want a free copy, click the link in the description.
Perfect. That's all I have for today, Janice. Thanks again as always. And everyone, thank you for listening. Talk next time.
Talk soon.